Good day everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Alexander Florzone, and today we will be looking at a laptop by the name of the Dell Inspiron 5000, the 5502 spec to be exact. First off, we'll be looking at the major specifications of the unit, and then we'll be doing a overall review of the whole laptop. And finally, we'll be running this thing through a few tests to see just how it performs in the real world. So first of all, it's no secret that this thing isn't really built for gaming. At its $1050 price point from Dell and a cheaper $900 on Amazon, it's no surprise that this thing doesn't have any actual dedicated graphics inside, given its thin build and aluminum chassis. With that being said, the thing is still boasting some pretty decent specs with a Core i7 under the hood with 4 cores and 8 threads, boosting up to 4.7 gigahertz with 12 megabytes of L3 cache. However, the most that I've seen this thing go up to really is more around 3.8 to 4.2 gigahertz on a single threaded load, with multi-threaded performance coming in around, I would say, 2.3 gigahertz most of the time. Unless, of course, you stick this thing in your freezer. We do get Intel's new Intel Iris Xe graphics with 96 execution cores, as they call them. And apparently, according to Intel's specs, it's running at 1300 megahertz. As expected, with it being integrated graphics, the graphics do share RAM with the main system memory, which is only one 8GB stick of DDR4 running at 3200 megahertz. However, this is easily upgradable. If you just open up the back, the RAM slot is readily available to add another 8GB stick or more if you want. There's also configurations of this laptop coming with 12 gigabytes, which is a 8GB and 4GB stick configuration. From a user perspective, I've used this thing for a couple weeks, and I've noticed with a few different tasks that the i7 is lots to handle them, but the RAM just doesn't cut it. However, it is easily upgradable, and I already have my 8GB stick coming in the mail, so stay tuned for a short little video on that, just a basic explanation on that upgrade. For those who really want to go all out, it does max out at 64 gigabytes. Another big downfall about this configuration is that it's only running a 256 gigabyte M.2 NVMe SSD, which runs at a sequential 2 gigabytes per second read speed and 1 gigabyte per second write speed, which is, not slow, but certainly not top of the line. Although I'm not going to complain too much since it is right kind of in the middle spec-wise, which is good enough for me. However, the small size sucks pretty bad, especially since once you have your OS and your basic programs on there that you want to run the laptop, you end up only having maybe 150 gigabytes left. A lot of programs and a lot of videos, for example, will take up the space very fast, very easily. There is some upgradability that comes with that though. There is a secondary slot for another M.2. However, Dell no longer includes the heatsink and mounting necessary to actually install it, so you have to order that stuff separately and then rig it all in there yourself, which can be very difficult, time-consuming, take up a lot of effort. So that's kind of a cheap move on Dell's part. But moving past those internal specs, however great and bad they may be, we have a 1080p display on here running at 60 Hz or 59 Hz, I guess, which is certainly not great, but it's fine, it's good. It's good enough for your average work that you'll be doing. Besides, this thing isn't made for running high frame rates on games in the first place. Something that I've noticed about this laptop is that everything is very middle of the line when it comes to specifications. The build quality is definitely up there, but everything else is very average. Same goes with the I/O. On the right side here we have a micro SD slot, a USB-A 3.2 Gen 1, and a headphone jack. And then over here on the left we have our power in, our HDMI 1.4, USB-A 3.2 Gen 1, and USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C, which is great to have, but certainly the I/O isn't anything to freak out about. Inside we do have a 53 watt-hour battery, and to wrap up the hardware side of things, we have our full keyboard with a number pad, which is a nice feature. Now moving on to the review of this laptop, I have been using it here for a couple weeks, so while this isn't a super long-term experienced review, it's certainly going to give you an idea of what you might notice right away when using it. So starting off, I just want to talk about the trackpad, because honestly I've had some issues with it. From what I know, it's a very regular trackpad. We have very average texture, average size. It's pretty nice, except if I'm being picky, I'll point out right away that the clicks feel a little gross. It feels kind of cheap, but that could just be me. I haven't used a lot of trackpads, so you have to take that opinion with a grain of salt. What I will say is a very objective problem, though, is that in some games, when I tried to move my view and pan around using the trackpad, it would not work unless I pushed down uncomfortably hard and rubbed back and forth across, which renders the game virtually unplayable with this trackpad. However, of course, most people are going to be using a mouse for those kinds of games anyways, so it's sort of a niche problem. As for the keyboard, it's very standard. It's nothing special, nothing short of the rest of the quality of the machine. It feels good to press, the keys are nice and firm, we're not having any wobbliness, the travel is decent. But one thing that I want to say about it is that whenever you're in a very bright environment, example these lights here in my little studio, you cannot actually see what the keys say from the wrong angle. So that can be kind of annoying if you're planning to do a lot of writing and work outside in the sun, for example, or just in a generally bright room with a lot of windows. It gets all washed out. That is due to the fact that it's backlit keyboard, however. So that's kind of ironic. We also have a fingerprint sensor on here, which unlocks the device in just under 10 seconds most of the time. So that's a pretty nice feature. Next up, the general build quality is great. The whole thing is aluminum. Very nice. Backing here, the full face, bottom panel, all aluminum. Very nice. With the exception of this front panel of the screen. The bezels are plastic, but a very high quality plastic. It certainly would not make it feel any more high quality to have this all be aluminum. It feels great, it looks great, not to mention the small bezels. It feels like a very premium experience for this price point. The hinge feels pretty good, if not a little stiff. If I'm going for a one finger push-up here, it does stick. But I would rather have a stiff hinge like that than a loose one that's flopping back and forth. I do appreciate the nice stiff screen, probably due to the aluminum backing here. And the keyboard does have a little bit of give to it. It's not shocking, but it certainly doesn't feel as premium as the rest of the build. With it being a full aluminum chassis, it's quite spongy. This notebook really is nice and compact though, coming in at only 3.78 pounds. It's a little hefty, but drop it in a backpack or a side bag, and it certainly will not feel any heftier than a pretty standard textbook. And it's only about 2 centimeters thick. So all in all, this thing has great build quality, a nice CPU under the hood. It's thin and light, but that's about it. In every other area, you pretty much have to compromise, but that's just how it is at this price point. You're not going to get a super nice, thin, light, beautiful laptop for $1,000 even, with dedicated graphics in it. It's going to be one of those thick, chunky plastic ones. But if you're looking to play games, that's definitely the way to go if you want to play cheap. However, if gaming isn't your thing, this laptop I think is a pretty good choice if you can get it on sale. You're rocking a great CPU if you just want to edit some photos. However, for things like video editing, the CPU is great. It gets you real far. you'll be able to edit 1080p at 60 FPS no problem, like I have. However, when it comes to exporting, you might have a problem. You'll be running out of RAM fairly quickly, and you might not even be able to export a video longer than a few minutes without the thing just crashing. So if you want to use this thing for video editing, you totally can. You'll just really need that extra 8 gig stick of RAM. Mine's already in the mail. Like I said before, it's like $50 to get it. Super easy to install. However, if you're looking to upgrade your storage to make some more room for that video editing, it's going to be a little tougher. But when it comes down to it, this laptop is mostly just designed for students, maybe small businessmen or writers who need that extra kick, that extra processing power, multi-threaded performance to be able to have multiple tasks running at a time, switching between them quickly. However, that doesn't mean that we can't try out some games and see if this thing can push 10 FPS. Who knows? Maybe Intel actually has something going here with their new Iris Xe graphics. Alright, so here I have Minecraft going. I ticked on all the little boxes, turned up the render distance to max, and anti-aliasing to max, full screen, so everything's maxed out. And, sorry for the crappy quality. I thought I had gotten a better video than this, but basically I was running at around 45 FPS, I think, on average, sometimes dipping down to around 30, 29. That was on max graphics with everything. And then right here, I turned it down to 12 chunks of render distance, and that actually brought up the performance all the way up to about 60 FPS for most of the time. I would say averaging around 55 with some of the dips in there. And then here's a list of the other games that I ran to test it out. I have an average FPS and then an approximate low FPS. So Sea of Thieves, this was running at the very minimum settings at 540p, and it was still not playable. So that's straight up just a fail, although I think it was running out of RAM for most of the time. Minecraft did good. I would say that that's totally a game that you can play on here. CSGO, I would say that it's playable on the lowest settings, although you still get pretty bad lag spikes here and there, which is kind of a deal breaker when it comes to competitive FPS games. Brawlhalla is a fighting game pretty much exactly like Super Smash Bros. That one had no problem running, which isn't a surprise. It's not a very demanding game. We got 60 FPS the whole time. I guess it's just capped at 60 FPS. Dota 2 was pretty decent. We were running at an average of 45 FPS on the medium settings. And then on the second from the highest settings, we were seeing some dips pretty low, around 15 FPS. But here I've included about what I was seeing on the medium settings, which still looks pretty good. Unturned was a similar story to Dota. It was running a little slow on the higher settings, but when I dropped it all down to the very minimum settings, it was definitely playable. So no, not really. Intel hasn't delivered anything new with their Iris Xe graphics. They're pretty much just normal integrated graphics, especially with that shared RAM, 8GB stick. Honestly, I think a lot of these games could go a lot farther if they had the RAM to work with. For example, Destiny 2, I think that was the issue. That's why it just crashed, because it was just straight up running out of RAM. It did not have enough. Although I'm guessing that the game wouldn't have ran very well anyway. Like I said before, if you want to play games and don't really need a super slick chassis and really lightweight laptop, then just go for a cheap Republic of Gamers or something like that. But at least this thing can play Minecraft, so I guess that's something. So I guess that's all for today's video, guys. Thank you for coming and watching my review of the Inspiron 155502. It's a pretty good laptop all in all, and I hope that it treats me well, and I hope that it treats you well if you decide to buy it after watching this review. Please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can be notified for the next video. If you would like, please hit the like button if you liked the video, hit the dislike button if you didn't, and make sure to comment and tell me what you want to see next. I am a new channel, guys, so I really do appreciate every single like and every single subscriber. I love making videos, but it's a lot of work and I'd like to make them like every single day if I could. So it would be really, really just amazing if I could build up my base a little bit, be able to do this. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.